So yeah, my name is Mike Vining. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I am a national sailing judge and a regional race officer, Mary E. And what happened was, a couple of years ago, I worked at regattas all over the country. Buffalo Canoe Club, One Design Regattas, Opti Regattas, kids. I got involved really because of juniors, because of my kids, and then kind of naturally I've been a sailor since I was 16. And so I said, I'm going to make sailing in Lake Erie better. That was kind of my mission. I said, I want the scoring to be better. I want the on-the-water part of the regatta to be the very best that it can be. And so I made a decision in like 2010 to any single club in Lake Erie that I knew that asked me to help with a regatta, I would go there and help. And I brought a lot of resources. I knew a lot of people from all over the East Coast because I worked in Annapolis and Florida. And I'm fortunate enough to have a job that I could travel around for free, and so I had the opportunity to go and visit a lot of different places and see. And it's amazing how much different people do it in different places. You think that you're doing it the best and you've got all the things right, and you find out that, hey, that's a good idea, and hey, that's a good idea. And I have to tell you that the single hardest regatta to run from a race management standpoint is a perf regatta or a multi-handicap regatta, because boats go different speeds, there's different ratings, there's different certificates, there's all of these things. If you have a one design regatta with 100 boats, yeah, there's some special techniques you can do to run it. It's a difficult regatta to run. But from the race management standpoint, it's cupcake. A perf regatta with 50 boats is a much harder regatta to organize and run than a one design regatta with 100 boats. Because you got to do times, you got to do scoring, you got to do certificates, you got to do all these things. So I got, Arnie was a Commodore at Edgewater Yacht Club, I was a Commodore at Edgewater Yacht Club. We had been involved in the flag. We already knew about all this stuff at the Yacht Club. We were done with that. We're racers now. We don't need to be. We just want, the Yacht Club exists for the race, not for the bar, right? Although I do really love the bar. So we were involved with Cleveland Race Week, and I was doing the on the water. And Cleveland Race Week, we get about 200 boats there over the course of 2 weekends, 10 days. About 80 of them are perf boats for the perf weekend, which is the second weekend, which is Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The format has been for 25 years. Thursday and Friday are point-to-point races in the evening. The idea is if you're in the town, you can work in the day, get your crew down there, and you do like a 8 or a 10 or a 12-mile race that finishes in front of the harbor front, and they take pictures, then we come back to the club with a party. And then Saturday and Sunday are buoy races. And it's scored as a series. There's individual prizes for each individual race. But we do get some boats to Lake Ontario, and we, at Cleveland Racing for years and years and years, we'll launch your boat for free. We have docking for free. We would take anyone's certificate. If you give me your certificate, we will give you a rating. And for a lot of years, we were a perf Lake Erie organization. And what happened, the first thing that happened was that we had people that wanted to race at our own club. They didn't have certificates, and they said, Cleveland Racing sounds like fun. I want to come and race. I don't know, just a perfectly innocent owner of a car in 30. I need a certificate. Call up and try to get a certificate, can't get a certificate. It's just impossible to get a hold of anybody. So that was annoying, and then people that wanted to race were like, well, this is a lot of politics to get a certificate. And then it costs extra money, and there's all these other problems. We're like, wow. So we started running racing without a certificate. We said, we don't care if you have a certificate, we'll assign you. Now that's a lot of work for the organizer. It was, honestly, excuse my French, a pain in the ass. We didn't like it. So we said, what are we going to do? And so that is what actually birthed PHRF South Shore. Totally selfish. We created it for our own needs to serve the race organizer. So, but what we found out is that the same problems that we have, participation, certificates, cost, all these things are all common problems that we've seen all over the place. And there's other clubs like you guys that are interested in, hey, what are you guys doing? How's it different? What's going on? There's all these questions. So meanwhile, we're looking around. Arnie started checking around to all these others. There's 22 perf organizations or something like that. So there's 20-some perf organizations around the country. They all do a little bit differently. Here in Buffalo, I'm sure you're familiar with Lake Ontario. It's a little bit different from PHRF LE. We have DRYA in Detroit. We see Perf Lake, Michigan boats. Well, there's also a couple of, there's Essex County, which is a very small one up in Lake St. Clair. There's all these other different organizations, they all have some different ideas. Perf is nice and easy because it's single number. And if you do time on distance, well, you can calculate it in your head. How many times have you stayed at that finish line to see if the guy was your competitor, whether you beat him or not? And everyone on the boat knows if he finishes by this second, we got him. What's the course distance? What's the course distance? We've all heard it. We've all done it, right? There's a lot of advantages to racing Perf. ORC is a pretty good rating system. Got to get your boat weight. Costs $1,000. You can't score it in your head. People don't like it for that reason, but it's a pretty good rating system. What's the guys in Chicago? The baby bot uses ORC Lite, right? ORR Lite, which is another one. Gives you a number. You can't score it in your head. So they give all these calculation certificates. So we said, we're going to use Perf. We're going to try and adopt it for what we need. And so what we did was we looked around. One of the things that we decided was specifically what Eric asked us to come here and talk about is this random leg rating. And so we developed a way to come up with this random leg rating. And then finally, if you are interested in any of the stuff we're talking about, you can go to our website. It's easy to use. It's public information. All the certificates are there. All the numbers are there. We're serving race organizers and sailors. And so I have to be easy to do business with. If you went to a store and they had a lousy website, you wouldn't go to that store anymore. Why is there so many lousy websites out there? So we have a very clean, very nice website that's very easy to use. And it's like that on purpose, and it will continue to be that way. So we're trying to be a little bit different and frankly approach it from there we go. So part of the problem that race organizers see is that the sports see this line of participation, and there has been we have to come as race organizers with a system of inclusion, not exclusion. So you can't say this boat can't race and that boat can't race and their boat can't race. So we publish a number for everybody. Pick a number, you have to do it. And our boat is an example. At our club, the Commodore last year had a VX1, which is a 23-foot performance skiff. The fleet captain had a J70, and they both wanted to race in Perf from time to time. I had to let them do it. I mean, the Commodore and the fleet captain, got to let them race. I mean, I didn't like it. There was problems with it, but we had to have a number for them. And so we tried to fit them in. Part of the problem that Perf has is they've got 40 years of design development since 1976. You've got heavy displacement boats, there's Tartan 30s. Tartan 30 can be pretty competitive, heavy displacement boat. You've got ultralights in our club, we've got two Melgers 32s, race Perf all the time. What do we do? We've got planing hulls, we race, we're lucky enough occasionally that if the winds blow out of the southwest, we have flat water, and so you can race in 20 knots at Edgewater Yacht Club and have a lot of fun. All those boats that'll plane, they're gone. Foiling boats. If you've seen the pictures of the new AC boat, I mean, it's a model hull that foils. I mean, I just can't wait till the first boat that comes around to foil. What are we going to do then? So we have to, we can tell them they can't race. I mean, we have to be inclusive. We have to let everyone race. So the second problem is we have to keep it fun for everyone. And so we have to have a system that helps identify boats with dissimilar ratings, and so that race organizers, like here, if each of one of you represents a boat that races out there, I can make some divisions and put boats together that are of similar class and type, and you can have some tight racing with each other, because frankly, that's most fun. In an ideal world, we'd all race one design. That's not, we don't have an ideal world. So we have to do something different. So, what do we do? All of these problems are problems with the organizing authority. And I'm really not here, and my system isn't really here designed to serve you, the sailor. And I don't know if there's any OAs here in this audience. Our system is designed to serve the race organizer. Because the race organizer, or your yacht club, or whoever organizes the race, they're the one that picks which rating you're going to use. And what we're designed to be is to make their life easy, to give them the tools they need to do a better job for you, and to provide things like certificates when someone doesn't have them. Like when someone presents a Lake Ontario certificate, how does that compare to the one that we have? Those are all the things that we're doing already. And we're designed to make the life easy for that race organizer. That's really what PHRF South Shore is designed to do. So who is the OA? The OA needs those tools to address all these issues. A rating system is one of those tools. So we looked at it and said, well, what exactly is an ideal rating system? Well, it's simple to understand. Like I said, a single number, easy to use. It's got a good website. It's easy to work with on days and hours leading up to the regatta. It's low cost to owners and payers. We're 25 bucks? 25 bucks. Costs 25 bucks. If one of your organizers said, you're going to have to take a PHRF South Shore certificate, we get 25 bucks. No one at our thing is getting paid. I'm not doing this for the money. Arnie's not doing this for the money. We are doing this because we were really selfish and we needed something that served our needs as regatta organizers. So we charge something, you know, because we do have some costs, not huge ones, but no one's getting any money. There's no big budgets going on. And I have to be honest and say, a lot of the personal organizations around, they're all volunteers. They're all run by volunteers. We just happen to have a really good website guy and some number crunchers and a bunch of smart people about sailing so that we can come up with a pretty good package, we think, that frankly has served our needs very well. And we're receptive to problems and ideas. Right now, the other yacht clubs in Cleveland, Cleveland Yacht Club, Lakeside Yacht Club, they all host their own regattas, and we said, hey, if you specify our system, we'll help you. We'll do all these things for you. And then we are willing to provide data for outside interested parties. So if someone in Buffalo says, you know, I'd like to compare what would happen if we used your system for some of my races, hey, no problem. Well, we're happy to work with you and provide whatever we can. The bottom line is, though, it's really not about the ratings. It's about all the other stuff. It's about the tools for the race organizer. So if you're sitting here tonight and you're upset because your Tartan 30 doesn't have a good rating compared to the Olsen 30 that you have to race against all the time, probably I'm not going to help you. Maybe I'm not going to help you. Now, we have a couple of things for the race organizers to use that are different. And they're tools that we provide, but they don't have to use them. They're just tools that are out there that have not been provided before. And we're here specifically to talk about some of those. One that we came up, we call it a performance prediction factor. And Arnie's going to talk about that. So, how it's different and why it's a good idea.
Okay, let me just make a couple points of clarification. Mike mentioned the VX1. The VX1 is not a PHRF boat. But what we do issue is a C or a club or a conditional rating. But our rules say we don't exclude them from racing anymore. We leave it up to the organizing authority to accept that certificate, to allow them to race in their regatta. The liability is theirs, not ours. Our job is to assign handicaps. That's one of our functions. We're going to talk about performance prediction, and Mike gave me a pretty good segue. There have been 4 decades of yacht design on Lake Erie since PHRF was established. In the first decade, ratings were pretty easy. They were pretty easy to manage. All boats were displacement boats. They all had the same inherent characteristics, and they could be compared to each other relatively accurately. So that made it easy to manage. Somewhere between then and now, we introduced ultralights. Cord hulls, lighter boats, bigger sail areas, faster. So now we could still manage them because they were fundamentally displacement boats, but they were different. Mike mentioned the Olsen 30. It was a rocket ship then, it's a rocket ship today. And then we come to the current, what I call high performance boats. These are what people euphemistically call sport boats. They have a completely different characteristic. At rest or a very slow speed, they're a displacement hull. But you get them under certain conditions, they exceed their theoretical hull speed by at least a factor of 2, if not more. And they can sustain that because they have different characteristics. So what we have is we have all these boats that exist on the same plane, the same rating system, the same rating curve. 74% of the perf organizations in the U.S. today separate out the high-performance boats. They create a separate rating band and allow the rest to race without the high-performance boats. 24% do not at all. So one of our big dilemmas, which started actually with the introduction of the J88. What do we do with them? Are they a high-performance boat? Are they a displacement boat? How do they rate? Where do they go? Who do they sail against? Well, this is what spawned the performance prediction factor. It's not to be confused with velocity prediction, which Eric covered, but it's a completely different concept. There are three basic speed-producing potentials or factors for a boat: sail area, displacement, how heavy is the boat, how much horsepower do you have to push it around, and the length at the waterline. The length at the waterline establishes your theoretical hull speed. So those three factors together allow us to compare boats and take them all at rest and say this boat has a performance characteristic that should make it faster than this boat. We don't predict how fast it will go. We just predict that this boat is likely faster than the other boat. So you have a light boat with a lot of sail area, with a long water line. They're going to go a lot faster than a smaller boat that's heavier with less sail area and a shorter water line. Kind of a common sense thing. So what we decided to do for performance prediction, very, very simple. There are two well-known, well-vetted ratios that are used that virtually all new boats and a lot of used boats have and characterize the boat. Sail area to displacement. And I talked about that briefly, and displacement to length ratio. Performance prediction is nothing more than the displacement to length divided by sail area to displacement. And it comes up with a number for every boat, and that's based on its characteristics. This is the mathematical derivation of the two, and it's well known and vetted, established in the boating industry, so it's nothing new that we've created. So, how does that work? Okay. This is the performance prediction factor curve that we calculated for all boats. Not all boats are shown at the bottom because there's only so much you can display in terms of characters before you can't read them. But over here, for example, this is the area where you have, let's say, for example, an Erickson 32, solid fiberglass hull, wood interior. It's a cruising boat. It's a fine boat. But it's characteristically different than what you have down here. Down here you have the Melvis 32s and you have higher performance boats. So the curve is valid in terms of the boats that you find at this end versus the boats down at that end. Now this allows us to rack and stack the boats without the rating.
With the ratings?
Yeah, go ahead. This is hopefully not too confusing and busy, but the peaks and valleys that you see are the actual ratings that fall on this performance curve. Now you can see there's a lot of variation. This orange line smooths out all of those ratings, and that's what the curve looks like relative to this curve. There are some interesting bumps and valleys, but what's really interesting is why are the ratings higher than the performance prediction would suggest? So it again highlights how difficult it is to put all of these boats together and treat them as a single unit.
Oh, so this just shows you that takes out all the busy stuff and shows you the two curves to give you an idea about, these are actual perf ratings in the country, and it's hard to pick because if anyone who's researched their own boat knows that your boat, even a boat that's very popular, like say a J35, has widely different ratings over the country, but this kind of averages them out and it gives you some kind of an idea. So you can see this boat, its rating, so that happens to be a Hughes 40, is relatively disfavored. He's getting laughed basically by his ratings if you just look at the raw numbers. Compared to this guy, an O'Day 30, a Swan 43, and then same thing down here. A Mirage 338, an Olsen 30, compared to a Flying Tiger, a VX1, and a Melvis 32. These guys are getting whacked relative to these guys. So, and that's just the average in the country. We're not talking about one organization, we're talking about everyone. As many numbers as we could gather, we figured, we calculated this.
And for our curve, there's over 400 boats that were used to plot that curve. So there's a significant database. Does anyone have any questions on the performance prediction curve? Everybody with me on that?
So it's a calculation, it's just a number. The weight of your boat and your sail area, basically, and the length of it. You give the numbers up, it's on every single certificate, there should be an certificate you can see. You calculate it.
There's a preface I got to this one. Bruce Bingman, who is the chairman of the U.S. Sailing Perf, he has stated last year, based on Block Island and Key West, that you're much better taking boats that are similar in design but have a wide rating band versus having a tight rating band to separate the boats and getting caught with dissimilar boats in the same class. So this is a vehicle that allows you to get out of that trap. And for example, these 4 classes, just arbitrary boats, are arranged according to PPF, but you can look at the swing in the rating values. And the PPF puts the boats into similar categories, and then and only then should you apply the ratings.
So for example, a VX1 and a Melgis 32 and a Melgis 30 and a J70, I don't care what their rating is. Their performance predictor says they perform similarly. They should race against each other. A J88 and a J111 should race against each other. And for example, if you put together, all the 60s and all the 72s and 60s and 75s, you necessarily shouldn't do that because this guy's got a much higher performance friction factor, lighter boat. He's going to plane, and he's going to, in light air, he's going to perform better. And if anyone knows the characteristics of the J88, it's a good light air boat.
So in any given race, in these examples, you would not use the perf rating to do the final calculation. You'd use their performance factor.
They'll do the splits, class splits.
The performance prediction factor is a tool.
This is how you decide who races against.
Exactly. Then the calculation for the race is the actual perf rating.
What's the derivation of the performance prediction factor? Why do you assume it has meaning?
Number one, all boats, regardless of how they're designed and when they were designed, are at rest basically all displacement hulls, and at slow speeds, they're displacement hulls. There are no variations. So that gives us the basis to make a fair comparison. Remember, I prefaced it by saying performance prediction does not predict how fast your boat will go. It just says based on sail area, based on weight, based on length of the water line, it should perform better than boat B. That's all it's saying. And the derivation is based specifically on sail area to displacement and displacement to length ratio. Nothing new. So you can use any one of those independently, but we decided to factor in length of the water line as well to make a more complete picture for us.
Has this been done anyplace else?
So we've been doing it at Cleveland Race Week for 6 years. At first, without having the PPFs, just by having a whole bunch of guys that really knew how the boats performed against each other, and saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm not putting that J88 to race against the Thomas 35. It's not happening. We're going to take that J88 and we're going to put him with a Tartan 101, and he's going to be with J111." And it was from guys with years and years and years of experience and talking to the sailmakers, because when the J88 showed up at our regatta, I'd never seen one in my life. And I'm like, what's it look like down below? Like, oh, it's a thing's a Clorox bottle. I'm like, all right, okay, we know what we got to do. This is an easy way for a race organizer to say, here's the numbers, I don't have to calculate anything. And frankly, if you use our rating system for South Shore, you can still do the divisions the way you always did them. You haven't taken advantage of what we've done. To take advantage of it, and that's part of the reason why we're here, is to school people, hey, let's put boats together that are the same. It's not fun to race a FAR 40 against a Tartan 30. It's just not. You never see them, first of all.
Let me try and answer the question. He asked, is it used anywhere else? No, it's not. Not PPF the way we have it. It is not used anywhere else. But what is used is sail area to displacement. If you have a large enough fleet, you go sail area by displacement and use that to rack and stack your boats before you split them into classes and then assign the rating. So sail area to displacement has been used. So it's not a brand new concept. It's just we factored in another.
And ORR and IRC all do it that way. Because they rate them by that. They have that. They basically calculate a performance prediction number. And that's what they use to rate the boats.
Yes.
Do you give different numbers based on main, jib, or spinnaker?
No, it's all 100% for triangle and the main. That's your sail area. So we don't factor in the spinnaker. And
not for the
we
PPF.
can have a lively debate, but we shouldn't get into that because even your perf rating is based on that 100% jib and your triangle, not your spinnaker. The spinnakers add a completely other variable. And we'll talk about that in just a minute when we talk about symmetrical versus asymmetrical scales. Yes.
So using the PPF split feeds, does it lead to like better overall like results? Like are the splits between first and second like second wise?
No, I don't think that's a desired outcome. Because based on your question, I would start to talk on time and distance and time on time. Time on distance generates this gap. Time on time takes the same results and crunches them, and it tightens the overall scoring. So the ability to be more competitive is more featured part of time on time rather than time on distance. But that's where that would apply.
What happens is that when you use this to do the splits now, you don't if it's planing conditions, these guys are all planing, these guys are not. And so when the race happens, all the planing boats are racing against each other and they're not racing against these guys. Now overall, still overall, and the only way to fix all the boats together, like Arnie says, is time on time. That's really hard to calculate. We don't use time on time at Edgewater. We haven't been. We are going to try it this year because we've had problems with we have 6 races that are the club all races together against each other, and people get upset because they got beat by 45 minutes. You know, well they still got beat, and time on distance is easier to calculate than time on time. So we're going to try and get some people.
Yeah.
I know Lake Ontario has switched completely to time on time.
But just a very brief description, because we don't want to get into time on time or time on distance. That's a nice discussion. But if you look at time on distance, from the start mark to your weather mark is 1 nautical mile. That's a linear distance. Does anyone sail 1 nautical mile to get there? No, they do one of these things, don't they? So they're liable to sail 1.25 miles. So for a 1/4 mile, everybody's heads up because you've used up your rating. So that's one of the concepts with time on distance that you have to worry about. Time on time doesn't care what the course is, doesn't care what the marks are, doesn't care what the course length is. They just want to know from start to finish how much time did you spend on that course. And then there's a time correction factor applied to your perf rating that calculates the result.
So what we're really proposing for the
Hang on,
PPF
Mike. Hang on,
is
Mike.
What percentage of Edgewater's races are using the PPF for their fleet split?
I can answer the question this way. It depends. And the only reason I answer it that way, because if you have a small fleet,
Let's talk about your Wednesday night races.
Yeah, it's based on the number of boats. If you have a large number of boats, it works and it works well. If you have 10 boats in your fleet, there you're going to have to make some decisions on your own in terms of the types of boats, whether you want to strip out the high performance boats or race everyone together. As you compress the fleet, this becomes less and less useful. In large fleets, it becomes very useful.
Wednesday night in Edgewater, how many boats do you have?
30.
30,
not enough. So what's actually happening right now is that they're talking about, the Jam fleet in particular, is talking about doing their splits this season based on the PPF, because there's a couple of guys that have some S291s and S279s that are traditionally done very, very well. They're also talking about, we're not going to talk about it tonight, but they're talking about using a handicap system as well for scoring, which is another way to kind of even it out. But we do use it at our regattas, and we use it in although Bay Week for IOI has been run by Perf LE, we've been doing the splits for the last 2 years at least, using PPF numbers. So we basically put the sport boats or lighter boats together, and we put the heavier boats. We don't really do it, we still do it by handicap. And luckily, we haven't had this kind of a condition to care about. But if you look at the past ratings, if you went back and looked at those ratings, you would see that that J88 was always jumped into the sport boat class or lighter boat class, and the 111 is actually a problem. It's kind of on the bubble, whether he should be this way or that way.
Well, here's another example I can give you where you can use PPF even though you can't apply it to your whole fleet. We had a situation in a jam fleet. We had a Catalina 320 and an S2 7.9 that are 6 seconds apart in rating. Guess what? They're racing against each other in a normal split by handicap. The Catalina 320 owner said, it's a waste of my time. I'd rather get a case of beer, invite out some friends, and go sailing. Because racing, I don't have any chance of winning. The PPF for these two boats are almost 2 to 1, where the S2 is significantly faster than the Catalina 320. So the PPF would suggest to the organizing authority, maybe these two boats shouldn't be racing against each other. Maybe as an organizing authority, we need to get a little more creative in what we do with our splits. So the PPF can help in even a small fleet, but it's very useful in a large fleet. Are there any other questions on PPF? Because I really want to answer as many as I can.
In your 30 boat Wednesday night fleet, let's just say, for example, how many of those boats would be in that upper band of PPF, sport boats, if you will?
The VX1, the Melgus 32,
Melgus
32. Melgus 24.
No, give me a number. 5 boats, 3 boats, 6 boats.
So the problem in that fleet is the J120. So he rates with those guys, and we'd like to have 5 boats or more in a fleet, because who wants to have 3 or 4? Because on a Wednesday, guys don't show up, they're traveling, they're gone, so you need to have 5, 6, 7, 8. And I think we had 2 splits last year.
Yeah.
I think it was A.
Paul, to answer your question, I'm going to say 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Out of that 30.
Sport boats.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the problem is we tried to do it by PPF, but it's been very difficult. We also, at our club, one design, if you have enough boats for a one design fleet, like Tartan 10s have a one design class start, they go and do their own thing. So they're not mixed in with perf. So it makes our perf fleet seem smaller because everyone that can race one design does. Someone had a question over here about PPF?
How does that take in wave action? I mean, we go out on if we're racing on a 12 knot, relatively flat water coming out of the northeast, boats are more or less easily compared on our curve. But when we start getting up to 18, 19 knot breeze and you start having 4 foot of wave action, I know my CNC 34 just comes to a stop.
Let me tell you, if I were an ORC guy, I'd say I have an answer for you. But remember, I said perf is an empirical rule. It's observation and experience. So is wave action or wind strength figured in? Not really. And when you go to time on time is when you start to pick up wind action, but not wave action. That's a more complex, and I think everyone can realize how difficult it would be to calculate those variables.
Again, we were racing against similar boats, which is what I think.
That's the observation and experience.
I've been watching the Rolex series on outdoor channel lately. They race windward lewards and they race far 40s windward lewards. They don't race other boats mixed in with that fleet.
Exactly.
Ever.
So let's say the big waves. The guy who has the J120 in our fleet, he's racing against the Belgian 32s all the time. He loves it when there's waves because those Belgian 32s don't go.
Right.
They keep getting whacked and slowed down. They just don't go. Now, if it's blowing hard enough to play, they whack him downwind because he just can't get going. But the performance prediction factor takes into account because, in general, that's about displacement. Big waves, displacement boat probably does better. So a lighter boat doesn't. And that's, again, PPF is talking about displacement. So you're splitting them, again, so it's the kind of the best you can get without having a special thing.
Okay, the next step is, we've referenced it before, and Eric referenced Southern California. Southern California is the wherewithal with any and all information that you want on PHRF. They have all their ratings, all their information, everything is available and accessible on that site.
And a good website.
And
which you hope
Southern
for.
California uses 3 ratings. They have a windward lure, they have a random course or reaching leg course rating, and they have an off-wind course rating, OWC. OWC is a little bit nebulous because they state in the rules that 2/3 of the race must be sailed at 135 degrees or greater. So it's all downwind. So that is not the normal circumstance, unless you have a point-to-point where you could use it, but it wouldn't be part of your normal equation. So we used the PPF to establish random leg course scoring or a handicap, or reaching leg, if you will. This is an older table, but it's developed, but it shows the concept. There's a table that looks at the PPF, not changing the existing PHRF ratings, that looks at the PPF, and based on the PPF for that boat, the boat would get a credit or their rating would be reduced.
Here you go. Here you go.
So, okay, this is what the curve looks like. And here are your standard stock ratings compared to your PPF curve.
So this is the existing rating that we have. And in general, these light boats are and here the heavy boats are performing not as good as their thing might indicate. So where I wanted to go with this is, why do we need that random leg? Why is it important for the boats that we have right now? Let me give you another example. I have 2 absolutely identical boats. They happen to be 35 feet in length each. They each have a good bottom, they each have good sails, and they each have a good skipper and crew. For all intents and purposes, under all conditions, they're absolutely identical speed-wise and how they perform. I'm going to take one of these 35-foot boats and I'm going to put a spinnaker on it, a symmetrical spinnaker. I'm going to take and put an ASIM on the other boat. We use IMS for calculating sail areas in PHRF South Shore. We calculate the max, 100% max spinnaker, symmetrical spinnaker that a boat can carry. Our data shows us from the asymmetric boats, the numbers vary, but the average is 150% for an ASIM. So, dead downwind, the symmetric has a slight advantage, and the ASIM has to sail angles because they're not as effective or efficient downwind. Let's take those 2 boats and put them on a reaching course. The symmetrical spinnaker now becomes inefficient and the ASIM becomes highly efficient. Why? Because the ASIM is cut for reaching, and in my example, it has 500 square more feet of sail area. So who's going to win on that reach? The ASIM boat. It goes without saying. Which is why we need those 2 rating systems, because the boats do vary based on whether you're sailing windward lures or sailing reaching courses or a triangle. As we develop this, the simplest thing that the organizing authority can do, for example, let's say you have a club series that has 20 races. 10 of those should be on a triangle, 10 of those should be on a windward lure to balance the wind. So just a very simple concept for you, but I think you get the idea of why we need a 2-rating system. So in a windward lure course, everyone's going around a lot of corners, as an example. In a corner, a Melges 32 goes as fast as a Tartan 30. Guys going around the corner, the boat slows down, they're all going the same speed around the corner. When you take off and go down the leg, basically you get on the expressway, the boat goes. So if you have a race that has longer legs, which we call it the random leg rating, or in our case, there's a crib, they call it 7-mile crib out in front of we race around the crib all the time. So there's these 2-3 mile long legs to race out there. And it's not upwind necessarily. It could be reaching, could be upwind, could be downwind, you never know. Because we're racing around a fixed point out in the lake and the wind doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that you can set your boat up and go there. And so what tends to happen is the high performance boats tend to win all those races. So what the random leg rating does is it takes a standard perf rate, and based on the PPF, we give boats that have a lower performance prediction number an advantage on their handicap. And we give boats that have a higher speed boat, down here, it happens to be a lower number, we give them a whack. So the high performance boat basically is getting a disadvantage in that random leg race course because he's on the expressway and has potential to go faster. Versus some of these guys, an O'Day 32, a Catalina 36 Mark I, versus these guys that are heavy. Smaller sail area displacement, shorter length in general. These are all typically non-planing boats. We give them that advantage based on the performance prediction, not based on their rating, based on their performance prediction number. So there's some boats that don't change at all. Now we tried to do this, I'll be honest and say that we tried to do this last year, Cleveland Race Week, at the 2 races at Cleveland Race Week that are business races. And oh my God, people were screaming bloody murder. You're gonna do what to my rating? 12 seconds, you can't do that, 12 seconds! Like your Mel's 32, we talked all about this for 2 years. We ended up not doing it. Now we're gonna do it again this year. We're actually gonna run 2 of our other races based on that number. The number's on a certificate, it's there for the OA to use. The OA can use it or not. I think it's a good idea. We've been talking about it for a long time, but boy, if you try and do something for someone 3 seconds or 4 seconds or 6 seconds, people go crazy. But the idea is that in general, and you look at those average numbers, in general, these slower boats need a little boost. You know, these guys need to have an advantage. They need to get a rating advantage. And in those distance races, you know, if you look at our club trophies where we've got these overall distance point-to-point races, the Melgis 32s, the Olsen 30s, the J30, the J24s, those are the guys that are winning all the time. Occasionally we'd have somebody else win.
Just to give you an example, a Melgis 32 on Lake Erie and South Shore rates 15. Under the random leg, they rate 7. So their rating has dropped significantly. And we reviewed this with the M32 sailors at our club and convinced them that this was the right thing to do, and they're agreeable with it.
So if you have such disparate data, I'm used to dealing with disparate data in clinical trials. So if you have disparate data like this, and you were to run two calculations, one with the single number perf, which is what we've been using for years here, and in other words, score the boats that way, and then score the boats under this. What kind of variation would you see in terms of how the
That's what we wanted to do last year. It's a tribal rule this year, and that's what we will do. Because we need to look at that data, because we need to test the validity of RLC before we launch it and say, here. And on your first South Shore certificate, it will say RLC tribal rule.
Because at the end of the day, you should be able to generate a p-value, and anything over 95% of the p-value is valid versus not.
Yeah.
So
that's where we're headed. But we have to accumulate the data before we can do that.
Because this is a classic way of dealing with complicated, disparate data.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm in healthcare, and we see this disparate data in clinical trials all day long. This is the same thing, except it's sailing and not.
So it's magnetic resonance.
So
I know clinical trials.
Exactly.
Yes.
With the exception after the race and everybody's kumbaya, I having a beer or a cocktail. Why would somebody with a much faster boat that has been continuously year after year winning the races and the trophies, why would they want to change their system just to make everything equal for the slower boat?
Well, I think what you really need to look at, to answer that honestly, is you need to look at participation. And why is participation waning? Is there a fairness component to that, where we're not as fair amongst the boats? Like my Catalina 320 example that I gave you, they pulled out. Why they pull out? What's the use? Let me get a case of beer and sail with my friends. I'll be doing the same thing.
Why don't we all just buy the same fast boat?
There you go. Problem solved. Problem solved. No
We
issues.
should all buy sharks and then give up on all the expensive boats.
But that's the answer. And in a lot of cases, it's a matter of the organizing authority looking at this data, approaching their fleet and displaying it and selling it. A lot of it is that, isn't it?
What scoring system do you guys use?
Well,
What program?
it depends. So I'm a big fan of the online scoring systems, yacht scoring, and Regatta Network, because instant gratification. You score it, you get it on your phone, you can see it online, and if you have a really good OA, before you hit the dock, you know, they don't have to post it. Like at our yacht club now, everyone knows that some of the fleets have, at our club, the fleets decide to do their own. But when I help organize regatta like Bay Week or Leukemia Cup or any of those other guys, I always say pick one of the online apps, because they're really bulletproof for scoring and for all of the things that happen, like DNFs and did not competes and retired and all those things, and they can score them all very well and display them all very well. And to serve the customer, you get the information really fast. But I mean, Sailwave works. We happen to like yacht scoring because we do a lot of these random leg races, and it's a distance race. And we also do 4 races a year that are reverse starts. What do they call it? I forgot. Pursuit race. So basically, you give your handicap up at the start. So the Melvins 32, which is typically the fastest boat, is always starting last. And if it's, say, an 8-mile race course, we have a couple ensigns that race perf. An ensign will go out, 32 minutes before the Melvins 32 starts. And you start based on your handicap. And then whoever finishes first wins. So if you get passed out there on the race course, you just lost the race. So we do that, and they have a really good tool inside of that program to calculate those things.
Any more questions? I've got one other thing. Oh, yes.
I have a question. How many races do you guys have in a year?
Too many.
Correct. I'm just wondering. I mean, just in Edgewater or overall in like the Cleveland area,
Well, the Cleveland area is fairly dense with regattas. So generally, what has been done with what I call the Cleveland Basin, Lakeside, Edgewater, and Cleveland Yacht Club, they canceled their club program to allow travel to these nearby regatta and events. So basically, every Wednesday, every Sunday, and sometimes weekends factored in is the racing that we do during the year.
There's about, on the Edgewater race calendar, if you count it, include race week, I think there's 38 race days, something like that. Yeah, and
what is the participation?
But we have a thing in Cleveland called CSA, the Cleveland Sailing Association, and the Cleveland Sailing Association, what they do is they organize who's going to. They make sure that there's not Menor Harbor's not having their regatta the same day as Cleveland Yacht Club, as an example. So, not that all the Cleveland Yacht Club boats go to Menor Harbor. In fact, a fraction of them go to Menor Harbor. But the clubs have all agreed when one club's having a regatta, the other one doesn't have club races. And so you kind of get better participation that way, but not everyone does it.
What would you say the participation in all these?
Well, we all wish it.
I mean, you said Edgewater on Wednesday night, you have about 30 boats or whatever.
We all wish it would be 100%. Clearly, it's not. I'm going to say probably we're in the 40-50% effectiveness area.
We have
across the board.
We have a series that we do called the Gold Coast Series with the Cleveland Yacht Club and Edgewater Yacht Club, where they race Sundays together. And I think it was 8 dates when they did that last year. And there's like 60 boats in that series. So again, but there's 2 throwouts. It's a big. It's actually it's a club challenge for a keg and a party. So, it's like bragging rights for your club, did you win or not? And it's frankly, it's a lot more fun. Well, somebody here was asking about, why would you do it if you're a fast boat and you win all the time? Going out there and sailing by yourself is no fun.
Well, we deal with, obviously, you're very familiar with Whitewater, we're sailing as well, obviously. Yeah. So my question is, we race Wednesday nights. We struggle immensely to get regatta participation. We have 3 regattas that you get nobody for. We have 1 yacht club besides the canoe club, and they don't like each other. I mean, it's,
Well, like-
it blows my mind, and, you know, the participation, the win on the participation,
But,
we talk about this in the club
you know,
all the
that's-
time. It's like, how do we keep this up? How do we get more interest?
That's the difficult part, is what is motivating these sailors?
Yeah.
Is it participation? Is it the fairness of competition that we were talking about? I'll tell you honestly, my goal, and I think I share this with everyone in PHRF South Shore, our goal is to get more boats on the water, to try and understand why the members are not coming out, why they're not participating, what are the issues. PPF and my Catalina 320 and S2 example, create a fair environment and you'll get people off the dock, because all of us are competitive in nature, but when we stand a chance, we're much more likely to participate rather than, oh, I'm not going to win a race.
If you think you might win.
How many people in this room think that a J22 can compete against a R40? And you guys would put them in the same fleet?
No, no, wait a minute. You're taking that as an absolute. You're taking that as an absolute.
3.83.
What I said originally was that the PPF is used to split the fleets. Then you get to apply common sense.
So
And that wouldn't happen. The PPF is a tool. It's not an absolute.
If the number works, if you like it, okay, but no, it doesn't work in this case.
Sounds like PHRF to me.
That's PHRF. We just described PHRF.
So
Yes, Paul.
why take this PPF when it's, well,
It's just another tool.
Look, it's a tool.
And then
If you're
the other
happy
thing
with
I looked at-
if you're happy with handicap
I
splits,
just looked at
stay
your
with it.
53 certificates, and you change boats from anywhere from a +3 to a -12, with the majority of the boats changing 6 seconds down.
No, it's plus or minus 9, depending on your PPF.
I'm looking at your certificate, right?
I'm telling you how it's calculated.
He calculates it. Then why
Yes,
does
Paul.
this certificate says the random leg is 176, and their first is 180?
But what did we just say? It's a trial rule. We need to run experiments. We need to gather the data. And as Jack suggested, we need to do analysis on that data. This is out of the box, first time. It's a tool. Yes, Paul.
Based on what you're saying, it sounds like you have at least 1 year of historical on the PPF system. So you guys ran a season with the PPF. Can you show us some results before the PPF compared to after the PPF was applied?
Well,
how does that affect the way the results condensed out at the end?
I think honestly, what is the purpose of the PPF? It's not a scoring method.
I know, and I
PPF separates boats.
And I appreciate what you're doing. I'd like to see a before and after to say, okay, how did that affect this fleet and that fleet? Because based on what you're saying, I think in Buffalo it's going to affect the top 2 fleets in Buffalo. And the rest of them, it's not going to have a big effect on the rest of the fleets.
I think it has a big effect on all of them.
It would change all of the fleets. If you're organizing the boats based on their length, sail area, and weight instead of what the number is,
Show me the numbers. I'd like to see what you did before when you were racing with Elliott compared to what you're doing now with PPF. Show us the money.
If you look at, the only way you can do it is you can go back and look at Cleveland Racing back a couple of years.
I'm not really interested in Cleveland Racing. I'm interested in your Wednesday night series.
But the Wednesday night series, there's not enough boats. We weren't really doing it that way. We're just going to start to really use PPF this year.
And that
didn't even run PPF last year in your Wednesday night series.
I might be a little confused.
And so people were upset. People said, hey, wait a minute.
No, this is all theory, in other words.
No, PPF is not theory. And at the beginning of our discussion, I already said it's a tool.
Okay.
Okay. And if you have a small, Paul, if you have a small fleet, I did state up front that it was probably not practical or usable. If you have a large fleet, it's very usable. But even in the small fleet, the PPF allows you to take the Catalina 320 and the S2 and make a decision. Should they race in the same class or should I do something different? That's where it helps you. So it's completely valid, even though we don't have PPF numbers.
Okay.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. What number are we missing that we can't use historical data to recreate data that we are, numbers that we have from previous races to give us an example of how this would affect us?
Yeah, absolutely, we can do that. I mean, I already have results for Cleveland Race Week for the past couple of years where we've taken a large fleet and recalculated based on PPF
So
split.
we have a very person in this group or organization that is very pro on what you guys are presenting. What is stopping them from using your formula to put this into data to push it to us, give us the members to show how the PPF works?
Oh, absolutely not.
Nothing. And guess
Absolutely
what? You go to our website, you don't have to use PHRF South Shore. You just go pick up the number and do it. And that's kind of the point. I don't care if you do it or not.
Right, I mean, we can say until we're all blue in the face, but until somebody presents data from past races.
But the point is, it's not going to change the results. It's going to change who races against who. That's all you're going to see.
There's nothing online, Paul.
PPF is not the rating, right?
Right.
I don't think everybody understands that.
No, it's a way to split the fleet.
That's all it is.
The way you were talking, the way Paul were talking, is how is this going to be rated under the new system? It's how the fleets are broken down, not how they're split.
Yeah, it would show us how on a given race, with the results that were given, that what fleets we would end up in or being in based on what the race committee was thinking that we should do. Wind direction and speed for that race that they're putting out.
You can take the base ratings off our website that has the PPF, put them into a spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, you can do a copy and paste into Excel and then sort on PPF. And then you can create your own splits with your own boats and see where things would fall.
Right.
So it's a tool for you to use.
Yeah, I think it's something a good tool.
Yeah.
We got a little side discussion down in here about it. We're not talking about changing fleets week to week, race to race. Similar boats should race similarly against each other in varying conditions, correct?
We're talking about changing the idea of what boats are similar. You said a J22 and a FAR 40. Those boats are not similar.
Well,
they happen to have similar PPF numbers.
Within my own fleet, we got a J27, a couple of J22s, a CS33, and a CNC 34. Just some of the boats. We had 17 boats in our fleet. But then we get the J27s the next week. We raced against them the year before. These boats don't all fit together in the same fleet in any conditions.
Right. So
the thing we're trying to say is that's the danger we run into with the diversity of boats you have when you try and split strictly by handicap versus split by PPF. Take a look at what you got and adjust it.
By type of boat.
Yeah.
Some boats will,
and it will suggest that a J27 should not be racing against a 34. That's what it's a problem.
Is that real? Can I get
No, I'm not going to give you the opportunity to look at it.
So basically, the PPF is going to give us different fleets. That's what you're talking about.
Like boats will race against like boats.
Okay, so this is what I say about what you're saying, data mining, to say, have a season and then reform the fleets. You can't do that, because when you have different fleets racing at different times, the winds are different, things are different, the wind angle is different. Unless you have everybody sail at once, then you can score and break up the fleets. But you really can't compare the data on Wednesday nights with the entire fleet of 40 boats and come up with different fleets and come up with that.
That's not really true. Because you can run two different sheets at the same time on these things, and you can come up with two different things right away. And you'll be able to see week to week where you're holding this week, this one, where you're holding this week.
The thing that you can do is base your entire fleet on that. And let's just assume that the conditions
You're making a lot of assumptions that everybody sails the same wind conditions, even though they have different start times. So there is some data.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
hopefulness here in comparison.
That's not an assumption I'm making. I'm saying that you could use that approach to take a look at what your impact.
Okay, I just want to be certain where you. Because this sounds like it's a pretty fine edge we're talking about.
I'm taking a software to generate two different sheets showing what the boats are winning and which aren't, and you can have both sheets, and you don't have to care to belong to one or the other. You can get rid of the one you don't want to be on. You can be on that other one, or you can be on this one. It's up to you, But if you really want to compare data, you've got to run two different standings at the same time so you can see it straight up for a couple of years. And it just runs off the software. It automatically prints out. You don't do anything
There's no data work. You're not collecting data at the same time because the fleets start at different times. And then
They sell different courses.
And different courses. So it's a very, it sounds great, but it's inaccurate, is what I would say.
Okay, we're getting into a lot of side conversations. Let's refocus for a minute. And is there anything else on PPF other than talking about local fleet properties? And I appreciate the questions, I really do. I'm not trying to diminish those. Yes, sir.
More important factor, wind speed.
Again, it's an imperative.
Your example of the 235 foot boats, I have the 105, someone else has the 35. He beat me 60% of the time. When I won, when he won, all depended on wind speed. It had nothing to do with the course.
Okay, now what wind speed or wave action considerations do you have now with your perforating? What?
No, that's what I'm asking you. What are you guys doing?
There is nothing because it's empirical. A perf is not a number crunching math model. We can't crunch those numbers because we don't know. That's where experience and observation govern.
Do you have any? How does San Diego do it?
You mean they're random leg?
No, they're 3 different wind speeds.
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question.
ORC does wind speeds. No perf organization, period, does wind speeds.
You can't. It's an empirical rule.
Yeah. The
You
guys
can't do it.
ORC is a measurement rule.
For some of the fleets, you don't use perf. You use ORR or a system that takes wind speed into consideration. And for the rest of the fleet, do it. For these sailing programs, you could use whatever scoring system you want.
I'm not trying to sell any handicap
I know you're
measurement
not.
system over
But
nothing.
what I'm saying is that would address that issue.
Yeah, but if you go to ORC, anyone here can join ORC. If you have a stock boat, you can get an ORC certificate. The only thing you're required to supply are your sail measurements. And they come back with a rating. The certificate costs you $100 a year. You've got your numbers. You can create an ORC fleet. You've got the wind and wave considerations. But PERF cannot give that to you.
But that's after $1,000 to get the boat weight on top of it.
If you have a custom boat that's not in their database, yes, you're right.
So in fact, the PLA this year, that's exactly what they're talking about. They're talking about having a PERF fleet and it's ORCEZ, right?
No, ORCEZ
So what's Detroit's using?
It's ORCEZ, but ORCEZ is issued only by Bayview Yacht Club. One
And
race.
they're going to have a handicap. They're talking about a golf handicap.
Yes.
You can choose between whatever one you
Give you a
want.
rating, an ORR rating without weighing your boat for $100.
ORC
If you have
Plus
a
certificates do that as well.
I have my certificate for my boat. I've got a J29. It's a standard boat. It's in the database. I supplied the sail measurements to them. They came back to me with a certificate. I've got it in the car.
Right, but you just said if this is custom boat, it's got to get weighed. It does not.
If they don't have it in their database.
If they don't have it in their database, they won't give you a rating.
I'll give it to you.
You'll have to go through measurement. It's a measurement rule.
He will do drawings from the builder.
Okay, I will completely back off if you can supply me that certificate.
Well, I don't have one because my boat's not custom, but I had.
Well, let's customize your boat.
I had a 45-minute conversation with people
Yeah.
about our.
But I think you understand what
But
I'm
again,
saying.
it doesn't matter unless the race organizer says,
Right.
we're going to use it.
But don't give false information out.
Look, you could get a certificate without weighing your boat.
Correct. Thank you.
Now, how do I know? Because I've engaged with U.S. Sailing and I've engaged with ORC. And I know if your boat is not a stock boat in their database, you're going to have to get it measured. Whether it costs you $100 or $1,000, doesn't matter. That's not false information. That's fact.
It's different from the email I got from ORR.
It's not ORC.
I'm sorry?
You guys need
that's
a
not
race
ORC.
organizer to say, we're going to organize a regatta and have an ORCEZ class.
No, ORR.
ORREZ class.
And I'm talking about ORC.
Oh, so we're talking two, so.
So, to clarify, maybe we are talking apples and oranges. Okay. Okay, what questions?
So the whole thing is that we're just, again, we're trying to give tools that are different than what's been out there to race organizers, to do splits differently, to do random races differently, to address the problems that frankly we all have. And some of the things we didn't talk about are, it's pretty well known by the sailmakers in this industry that asymmetrical spinnakers, they've been unduly whacked on boats. And if you converted your boat to an asymmetrical, you've got a bigger rating penalty than the advantage was. So a lot of people didn't convert, but you can sail with less people. So there's a lot of advantages, and what's happened in other PHRF organizations is they've gotten more liberal about what they do to allow asymmetrical spinnakers on all the boats. Let sailmakers sail. Makes the boat more fun to sail. You can sail with less people. There's a lot of advantages to asymmetrical. Cruising class credits. How do we get these sailing slugs and citizen docks number one?
Let me mention one thing quickly about the ASIMs. All the organizations around Lake Erie have some credit for a conversion of a heavy displacement boat to a centerline asymmetric spinnaker. Some use displacement to length, some use other factors, but everyone has some type of adjustment around it, including Lake Ontario, Detroit Regional. All of those have some type of asymmetric credit. So why do we want that? One of the common complaints that I hear around the yacht club is, gee, I'm going to have to stop racing. I need 8 people and I can't get 8 people. Well, convert to an ASIM, you can sail it with 4, probably in most conditions. So it's less people. And I tell you honestly, the ASIM's pretty fun. I like the ASIM.
With your system, certainly perfectly, if you were to do what you just suggested, depending on how long that split's going to be, it's going to hit you with a modification at different size. How do you handle that in your system?
We can't, because we don't have a similar rule. So if the boat converts on the South Shore to ASIM, they have to fall into the rule of this. Let me backtrack a little bit. Most all regattas should be run following this. Are you a PHRF member? Yes, no. This regatta has been declared a PHRF Lake Erie regatta. You present a South Shore certificate, it has a different rating. PHRF Lake Erie prevails because it's run under PHRF Lake Erie rules. So it overrides the certificate. But the South Shore is still a member of PHRF. They're still a legitimate certificate holder. So that's the way it should work.
So is your certificate also accepted with the Erie Dover, let's say?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's up to the race organizer. For example, in DRYA, they say you have to buy a DRA certificate. We don't care what you have. You have to buy a DRA certificate. And I understand that most of the organizers in Lake Ontario say the same thing. You have to go buy a PHRF Lake Ontario certificate. You can't. It doesn't matter who they are. At Cleveland Race Week, we'll take anyone's certificate. As long as it has the information on it, we can adjust the rating. We'll take anyone's.
Well, this
it's up to the race organizer.
This is getting a little abstracted. We're here to share information on what PHRF South Shore is doing and why we're doing such things as the PPM. We're not here to challenge PHRF Lake Erie.
Right.
We want them to exist. They're totally legitimate and have been for decades. All we are is an alternative, but our thinking is forward thinking. We want to get out there. Hey, Mr. Organizing Authority, what problems are you having? Let's work together to see if we can come up with a solution to everybody's benefit. That's where we're coming from. We also want to listen to the sailors. How are you sailing your boats? What do you need? Are you happy with what you've got, or what would you recommend? There's a possibility that we may put our committee together and be able to work on that and give you a possible solution. That's the premise of PHRF South Shore. And I don't want to diminish that, because we're not here to sell PHRF South Shore. We're here just to give you some of the ideas and tools that we're taking forward. Yes? Oh,
it was just about the organized accepting PHRF and different, 2 different PHRF. Okay, see, it's 2J, let's say 2J33 out there. They're both 2 boats. One's got a South Shore rating that's 110. The other one's got a 115. How can you rate those 2 boats together?
Whose rules are you following? What regatta?
Well,
this regatta has
when you said, he said that they accepted both certificates.
We do. But prior to that, I said, what rules are the regatta being run under? If they're PHRF Lake Erie rules, then PHRF Lake Erie ratings apply.
Okay, so.
If, for Cleveland Race Week, we run it under PHRF South Shore. If your LE certificate agrees, no problem. If it doesn't agree, we modify it to match what's in the PHRF South Shore data.
And hopefully you have a certificate that gives you all the information you need, and you can easily look at it and say, okay, it's different. What's different about this one? Why are these two J33s have two different ratings? What's going on? So one of them's modified in some way, or they're both modified in different ways. So hopefully the certificate identifies that. And one of the things that we have, again, a tool for the OA, a really good certificate. It's easy to look at and understand the certificate, and very quickly I can decide, you know, what's going on with this boat and why does it have a different rating? What's different about it?
With some of our South Shore members, we've actually had calls back that said the ratings or the measurements on my certificate don't match my boat. We go out and verify, modify, and adjust the rating accordingly.
So what you're saying on a PHRF South Shore certificate is going to take in more factors than a PHRF LE certificate?
Not really.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess, you know, one of the things that why, you know, obviously you offer more tools and more variables than a PHRF LE. And I know you're not sitting here to sell where it's PHRF LE or whatever. I think a lot of us here to learn about, you know, what South Shore is different than PHRF LE or whatever, and maybe adapting PHRF South Shore as our certificate, you know, ruling class or whatever, or handicapping system over PHRF LE, which we use currently.
Now, I can tell you PHRF LE, as part of their database, has a lot of data on a boat, but there are certain things they don't have. For example, ballast isn't on your certificate, and I don't think that's tracked or measured. We have every possible measurement within PHRF South Shore. Why? Because we don't use to assign ratings, but if we see a boat that we've never seen before, is a custom boat, we gain measurements, we use the Sheldon regression formula, which is a formula that very accurately calculates a PHRF rating.
Well, this Nelson Merritt 30 we did last year.
Yeah. And now, the example I want to give, it's very, very accurate, but here's an example where it falls apart. A J24 rates 209 if I calculate the rating, but on Lake Erie and South Shore it rates 171. Why? Observed performance and experience. The ratings needed to be adjusted because a J24 is a semi-planing boat. You put it on a reach at 12 to 15 knots, it'll exceed its hull speed and sustain it. It's not a planing boat, but it will surf and sustain that. So, kind of semi-planing. J22 is the same way. I've been out on a course 25 knots. A J22 has screamed by me on a plane. So don't tell me a J22 is not a planing boat, because it is, because I've seen it. So, have we exhausted everyone? Oh, question.
Random leg factor, you say is one of the tools. You haven't really used it, right? Is that a fair statement?
The which?
The random leg factor.
No, the random leg we have not used.
But it would affect the base PHRF rating if you use it, correct?
So that would actually change results.
That would change results.
And you're not sure, since you haven't tried it yet, exactly how much or how.
Right. As Mike said, what we're going to do with some of the distance races in Cleveland Race Week is not use random leg to score, actually physically score the race, but we will dual score it so we can look at the results and start to gather data on, is it effective, is the range enough, is it adequate for what we're doing? Maybe we'll discover, no, it doesn't work. We'll have to take another truck.
Do a preliminary, I thought I saw a chart up there with the random leg factor and how it differs from.
Well, that's the window right now. We decided coming out of the box we're going to use a plus and minus 9 seconds. And we take the PPF and distribute in certain blocks over that 18 seconds total.
So what you can say then, at least empirically currently, is that without trying it, it may change the ratings on random legs as much as 9 seconds per mile, correct?
Well, I can't say as much as 90. It would depend on the PPF of the boats. But yes, it would change the rating. It would either be a credit or it would be allowance, a negative number.
So it's a negative or positive 9 seconds.
They have 53 boats on their website with certificates. You're changing there anywhere from +1 to -9 is all I found. Most of them are -6 seconds, 5 seconds.
And that's where
very
they fall
little
with
change
PPF.
because everyone's getting the same.
Well, when you see very little change in our current system, you have to appeal your rating every year, and you got to wait for a 3-year.
Well, I mean, that very honestly is why we don't come out of the blocks and saying we're going to use this, because we don't know. We haven't empirically verified that it will work and it's sensible. We don't know that yet. This is just an arbitrary start and selection of data, and we need to evaluate the results. Not using RLC, but dual scoring races where we use RLC. Okay, anybody more now?
No, I have more questions. You've used the PPF in regattas and handed out awards based on those.
PPF is not an award system. We have,
but change the fleets. But change
yes,
the fleets.
Correct.
And you handed out awards based on the changed fleet.
Right.
How the participants
and now
are they happier with it?
People accept it. That's correct.
They accept it and they're happy with it.
Correct.
They
So what
feel it's
happened was
fair.
the CNC 101, the J88. Those are the guys that were affected by it. And in the beginning, we had to sell it, and we had to sell it because everyone's always looking when you go to regatta. What are the splits going to be? What are the splits going to be? What are the splits going to be? Those guys, we publish the splits. Are like, wait a minute. So how come not? I always race against the Shock 35s, CNC 101. I always race against the Shock 35s. Well, you shouldn't. You know, he liked it because you beat him all the time. So we're going to put you with these other boats that are more like you, and in the end, it is more fun. The racing is the boats are more similar.
But you also look at the overall differences. If we told you your rating was going to be -3 seconds a mile, it would be a disastrous confrontational discussion because nobody likes that. It's like you lost a family member. 1001, 1002, 1003. That's it for a mile. So it's significant because we've been trained to think of it as significant, but what we're looking for is fairness, performance, and to make racing more equitable and fun for everyone. That's what we're trying to do. Yes, sir.
So the PPF is changing splits of fleets. How do you deal with your upper end boats? For instance, we have a par 40, sail area displacement, maybe 30, 52, somewhere around there. And there's nothing else that fits with it. So where are you going to put it?
He'll fall on the PPF scale. He can't be off of it. He'll be on it.
That answers my question. Where are you going to put him? Because the only thing that's going to fall in that type of sail area displacement might be an SR21, might be a J22, boats that just don't belong with a -9 boat.
Well, you know, that's really tough for me to answer because I don't know where that number is or where it falls.
So there is no place to put it?
No, I didn't say that. No, I'm going to tell you to consult with your organizing authority on that. Okay, I think we've exhausted everyone. Thank you very much for your attention.